He believed war could be reduced to diagrams and decrees. That if enough lines were drawn on enough maps, the world would bend itself into obedience. Adolf Hitler trusted systems. He trusted fear. He trusted that men, once broken by uncertainty, would remain broken forever. He never understood soldiers. When I first walked among the American forces placed under my command, I saw what his intelligence officers must have seen on paper, men who still carried the softness of home in their posture. Rifles held like obligations. Marches taken without urgency. Faces that had not yet learned what it meant to live beside death. To Hitler, these men were proof of his certainty. Amateurs. Temporary obstacles. A force that would fold the moment real pressure arrived. He assumed discipline was something imposed from above. That obedience came from terror, that loyalty was born of threat. That was his mistake. Discipline, when forged correctly, is not a cage. It is a weapon. I stripped away comfort without apology. Training became relentless, unforgiving, repetitive to the point of exhaustion. Mistakes were not tolerated, because on a battlefield, hesitation kills more efficiently than bullets. Men learned to move not as individuals, but as a single breathing organism. Boots struck the earth in unison. Rifles became extensions of their arms. Fatigue ceased to be an excuse and became a constant companion. This was not cruelty. It was preparation. Hitler believed fear made soldiers obedient. He never learned that fear makes men fragile. Fear collapses when the night grows long and the guns draw closer. What sustains a soldier is belief. Belief in the man beside him, belief in his own capability, belief that discipline will carry him through chaos when instinct alone fails. I did not ask my men to become fearless. I asked them to become ready. As the days passed, something shifted in their eyes. The uncertainty burned away, replaced by a hard, quiet resolve. They began to understand that discipline was not punishment but liberation. When every movement is rehearsed, the mind is free to fight. When order replaces confusion, courage has room to breathe. Hitler never imagined this transformation because he had never trusted men, only control. He saw armies as tools, expendable and interchangeable. I saw them as living forces that could be sharpened or shattered depending on how they were led. I walked the same ground they did. Endured the same weather. Demanded much because war would demand more. And in return, they gave me something no tyrant can command. Loyalty. Not the brittle loyalty born of fear, but the unbreakable kind forged through shared hardship. Men will endure hell for a commander who stands in it with them. They will move forward when instinct tells them to hide, because they believe the structure around them will hold. Hitler counted on weakness. He read reports and saw inexperience. He mistook softness for fragility. He believed defeat would poison these men permanently, that once shaken, they would never recover. He did not understand that defeat, when met correctly, does not destroy a soldier. It clarifies him. The force he dismissed was being reshaped in silence. Not by speeches. Not by promises. But by repetition, discipline, and the slow, brutal shedding of illusion. What emerged was not the army Hitler expected. It was something far more dangerous. An army that believed in itself, and was ready to move. Hitler believed weight decided wars. He trusted mass, fortifications, and the slow grind of inevitability. He imagined American armies moving like heavy machinery, powerful perhaps, but sluggish, bound by supply lines and cautious command. In his mind, speed belonged to Germany alone. He was wrong. Speed is not born in engines. It is born in will. I learned early that hesitation is a luxury war never forgives. Every pause invites the enemy to think, to reposition, to recover. So we moved. Not recklessly, but relentlessly. Forward became habit. Momentum became doctrine. While German staff officers studied yesterday's maps, my columns were already crossing tomorrow's objectives. Villages fell before scouts could report our approach. Crossroads were seized while German units still believed them secure. Their commanders watched their timetables collapse, each report arriving too late to matter. Speed turned geography into confusion. Confusion became fear. To Hitler, this was inconceivable. His war was built on planning from a distance, ink on paper, orders filtered through layers of obedience. He believed control came from central authority. I believed control came from presence. Maps can lie. Reports can mislead. The ground does not. I walked terrain before battles. I listened to the wind. I studied the shape of hills, the angle of roads, the way sound carried at dusk. There were moments when instinct spoke louder than intelligent summaries, when something felt wrong, when silence carried threat, when the air itself seemed to warn of movement yet unseen. My staff sometimes hesitated. "Sir, we have no confirmation." Confirmation, I learned, often arrives after the damage is done. So I moved first. I shifted formations before enemy plans solidified. I reinforced sectors others considered quiet. I prepared for attacks the enemy had not yet decided to launch. Hitler expected logic. He was undone by intuition sharpened through experience. Nowhere did this difference reveal itself more clearly than in terrain. German planners fortified the obvious: roads, bridges, valleys that appeared on maps as clean, logical avenues of advance. They trusted that no army would willingly march through what nature itself seemed to forbid. Forests too dense. Ravines too narrow. Mud that swallowed vehicles whole. That was where I went. We drove through forests that clawed at armor. Through ravines where tanks moved like breath held too long. Through ground so waterlogged it fought every step. Men cursed the land, swore the earth itself resisted us. But still we advanced. And when we emerged, unexpected, behind lines believed secure, the enemy's certainty shattered. Hitler built walls around predictability. I walked through uncertainty. Speed amplified this chaos. We did not allow the enemy time to interpret what they were seeing. By the time German commanders understood where we were already somewhere else. Their defenses, designed to meet us head-on, found nothing but empty roads. This was not recklessness. It was pressure applied without relief. Every success fed the next movement. Every captured position became a launching point. Momentum carried us forward, not because we ignored risk, but because we understood that delay carried greater danger. Hitler believed war rewarded caution in its later stages. He believed patience would grind enemies down. He did not see that patience without initiative becomes paralysis. My men learned to trust motion. To understand that speed, when disciplined, protects as much as it threatens. The faster we moved, the less time the enemy had to organize resistance. The faster we advanced, the more their confidence eroded. Fear spread not from defeat, but from unpredictability. German command no longer asked where we would strike. They asked how we were already there. Speed became our shadow, unseen, relentless, always one step ahead. Hitler never feared our weapons. He feared the loss of control. And control, once broken by momentum, cannot be reclaimed. Hitler believed defeat revealed truth. That when an army broke, its weakness was exposed forever. To him, failure was a verdict, final and unchangeable. He looked at Kasserine Pass and saw confirmation: American forces scattered, retreating, disorganized. Proof, he believed, that his assumptions had been right all along. He mistook collapse for conclusion. Defeat is not the end of a soldier. Defeat is the moment illusion dies. After Kasserine, I walked among men sitting in dust and silence. Helmets abandoned. Eyes fixed on nothing. They had tasted fear and confusion and lived through the moment when control vanished. To Hitler, this was permanent damage. To me, it was raw material. We did not rebuild pride. Pride shatters easily. We rebuilt purpose. Every mistake was dragged into the open. Every failure examined without mercy and without shame. Units learned why they broke, not just that they broke. Commanders learned that rank does not substitute for clarity. Men learned that survival depends on discipline carried forward under fire, not remembered afterward. The army that emerged was quieter, harder, less concerned with appearances and more with outcome. They had learned what defeat felt like, and how not to repeat it. Hitler never anticipated how quickly soldiers can adapt when they are allowed to learn honestly. While we hardened ourselves in the open, another weapon took shape in silence: belief. Not ours, but the enemy's. Operation Fortitude was not merely a deception. It was an act of psychological warfare crafted with precision. Inflatable tanks sat where steel never would. Dummy artillery pointed toward coastlines like silent threats. Radio transmissions flowed with convincing rhythm, carrying conversations meant to be overheard. Even tracks in the mud were placed deliberately, evidence for eyes that wanted confirmation. Hitler wanted to believe I would lead the main invasion. So we fed that belief until it became a prison. He trusted his assumptions more than his senses. Reports that contradicted the narrative were dismissed. Evidence that challenged expectation was ignored. Entire German divisions remained fixed in place, waiting for an army that existed only in his imagination. While he waited, the real invasion burned through Normandy. Even as the beaches fell, he hesitated. He believed it was a feint. That the true blow, the one I was supposed to lead, was still coming. The deception worked not because it was elaborate, but because it aligned perfectly with what he already believed. This is the danger of certainty. Once a man commits to a belief, he will defend it against reality itself. The greatest deceptions do not create lies. They reinforce expectations. As the campaign progressed, German commanders began to realize they were fighting more than forces on the ground. They were fighting confusion seeded at the highest levels. Orders arrived late. Reserves were held too long. Opportunities vanished while permission was sought. Meanwhile, my army moved with clarity sharpened by earlier failure. We did not waste motion. We did not chase illusions. We exploited gaps left by hesitation and widened them before they could be closed. Hitler believed intelligence meant information. He never understood that intelligence also means understanding how the enemy thinks. We learned his habits, his delays, his reliance on confirmation. We anticipated his reactions before they occurred and positioned ourselves to exploit them. This was not luck. It was study. Defeat had taught us humility. Deception taught us patience. Together, they forged something Hitler never expected, an enemy that learned faster than he could adapt. By the time the illusion collapsed, it was already too late. The damage had been done not by surprise, but by belief turned against itself. Hitler thought he had seen our limits. He never realized we had already moved beyond them. By the winter of 1944, Hitler believed the war itself would fight for him. His armies were bleeding, his fronts collapsing, but he trusted the season. Snow would slow us. Fog would blind us. Cold would finish what his generals could not. Winter, he believed, was still loyal. He gambled everything in the Ardennes. The forests were a frozen maze, roads buried, visibility crushed, movement strangled by ice. Bastogne became the center of his hope. Surrounded, isolated, choked by snow, it was meant to break the Allied line and fracture our will. Hitler believed no army could maneuver fast enough through that hell to stop him. He underestimated motion. When the call came, we did not debate. An entire army turned north in hours, not days. Columns pushed forward through blizzards with headlights dimmed, engines groaning against the cold. Men slept on moving trucks. Ate frozen rations. Marched with breath crystallizing in the air. The weather fought us at every mile, but it did not stop us. We reached Bastogne not crawling, but striking. The German offensive cracked the moment momentum shifted. What Hitler had imagined as nature's shield became his trap. Winter did not break us. It revealed who was prepared to endure it. He still believed the sky belonged to him. 4 days, fog grounded aircraft and smothered the battlefield. Hitler saw protection. I saw delay. When the clouds finally parted, it was as if the war exhaled. Allied air power returned with vengeance, slicing through German formations that had relied on weather for survival. Lines that held only because they were unseen collapsed in the open light. Nature had chosen no side. What followed was not spectacle, but pressure, constant, grinding, inescapable. This was where Hitler's greatest misunderstanding revealed itself. He worshipped grand offensives, dramatic gestures, visions of sudden reversal. He underestimated the quiet machinery that sustains war. Logistics. Fuel moved before tanks. Ammunition arrived before orders. Mechanics fought their own battles in freezing mud so engines would live another day. I treated supply not as a burden, but as a blade. An army that eats, moves, and fires without interruption becomes unstoppable. German resistance began to fail not from defeat, but from exhaustion. Hope eroded. Timelines collapsed. Every retreat shortened their future. Even then, I refused illusion. Victory was never declared. Pressure never eased. War has a way of pretending to die, only to rise when vigilance fades. So we marched. Through Belgium. Through Luxembourg. Toward the heart of what remained. Hitler believed enemies would rest. That success would soften us. He never learned that rest is where defeat hides. When I fell, he believed momentum would die with me. It did not. The army did not hesitate. It did not search for identity. It carried forward what had been built, discipline, speed, instinct, like a living inheritance. This was the final blow he never foresaw. Legacy. A tyrant believes power ends with the body. A commander knows influence survives it. What we forged outlived me, outpaced him, and crushed what remained of his war. Hitler fought armies. He never understood he was fighting something stronger. The will that endures.